Welcome to the Marshall McAdam Talking Tech and Talent podcast, where leaders in Australia in technology, transformation and projects drop by and share their insights. I'm your host, Tim Hutchinson, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Andy Sutton. Andy is the GM of data-driven transformation at Endeavour Group, and Endeavour's perhaps best known for its brands Dan Murphy's and BWS. Andy and I are going to explore how his team are mobilising to drive measurable growth from the data they hold, and we're also going to explore the challenges and opportunities that a large-scale transformation such as that represents. We will get into that right after this.
Welcome to the Marshall McAdam Talking Tech and Talent podcast, where Australian business leaders and experts discuss the technology and talent challenges facing organisations today and the opportunities available to innovative businesses in the future. Let's get the conversation started.
Andy, absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Tim. Nice to meet you.
You will get the now obligatory virtual applause.
Do I get booing at the end?
I've probably got one somewhere. But there you go. No, it's an absolute pleasure. We've actually tried to get together a few times, and I think life got in the way. Touch of COVID or potential
COVID's got in the way at least twice. Yeah.
Your contemporary dance classes, I think, clashed with the couple of dates we had. So, but we're here now. That's the main thing. We're going to have a pretty good chat. So we're going to hear more about Endeavour Group and your role there, which you interestingly describe as a $15 billion startup. So we'll get behind that and the transformation journey that's underway. We will explore how you're mobilising data there to drive significant measurable value and growth. And we'll also look at talent challenges, which are such a live topic in the market currently. Before all of that somewhat technical stuff, you're the main event today. So let's talk about you. Who is the Andy in front of me?
Well, that's pretty good because I think that's my favourite topic of conversation, if I'm honest, is talking about me.
Perfect.
I'm from the UK, grew up in Wales until I was 18, went to uni, started out doing analytical stuff on the tools when I was about 22, 23. Mm-hmm. And then I've kind of moved, I guess, up through the levels, as it were. Moved to Australia to work for Woolies about 5 years ago now. Recently became Australian citizens, so we're here to stay.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I've got two kids, two girls who are 16 and 14. Mm-hmm. My wife's a dentist in Kellyville in Western Sydney.
So you'll be able to retire soon then, that's good.
I would hope.
Yeah.
But doesn't seem to be part of the plan currently. Yeah. And outside of work, I run. So I may not look like it, but I'm a park runner. I run anything up to half marathons. I've done one marathon, and that's enough, frankly, to do one.
Yeah, right.
So me and my daughter...
May I ask the time?
It was just over 4.5 hours. I was aiming for 4.5, and it took slightly longer.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But
that's good. It's good.
That was 6 years ago in London. So if you're going to do one, you may as well do the best marathon in the world, I think.
Oh, well done.
And now I routinely get beaten by my 16-year-old daughter, who basically kicks my backside about once a week.
Fantastic.
When we run together. But I think running for me is an outlet, really. It's a way of coping with the stresses of work, mental health challenges. So I've had a few mental health challenges over the years with OCD, anxiety, depression. So I can probably tick off the whole list, really.
Right. Okay.
But running is the thing that keeps me grounded. I find when I don't go for a run, things get a little bit more tense.
Yeah, fantastic. And I, along with others, perhaps have seen, for example, on LinkedIn, that you are something of an advocate for mental health or mental health in the workplace, or.
I find it a lot easier to talk on LinkedIn than anywhere else, if I'm honest. So like easier than having a conversation like this about it in some respects. I've talked about it in work a few times, but mainly about things that happened in the past rather than the here and now. I do find it a lot harder to talk about like the moment. So if I was off work with stress, for instance, the moment, I find that harder to talk about. But I do think having the conversation helps.
Did that feel like a sort of a natural progression, or was it a bit of a pros and cons, or are there pros and cons to being open about it?
So I haven't actually found any cons, if I'm honest. I've been open. So it took a while for me to be open when I first started out. And I think I'm in quite a fortunate position. I'm fairly senior, and therefore it's a lot easier to have that conversation, really, because it's almost expected is the wrong word, but it's okay to do it. Whereas when I started and I was 23 years old and having a conversation with my boss about I'm feeling depressed, that was hard. So I can see why it would be difficult.
But you're talking about 23, which was, I mean, that's what, 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, I wish.
There was still, I think, significant stigma to speaking out 5 years ago.
I think it depends where you are in the world as well. So I think in the UK, there's probably a more advanced conversation about mental health than in Australia, slightly more. I think, so I've taken different steps over the years. So originally it was just one-on-one with a boss. Then it became more open and I'd have the conversation in the workplace. Then on Mental Health Day, probably 2 years ago, I put it on Facebook. And that was the first time I'd really come out and told quite a few people about it. I got really good feedback and really good response. So then I kind of went, well, if I can do it on Facebook, I can probably do it with people I actually care about immensely. Then I can do it on LinkedIn with people that I work with, or maybe acquaintances. And again, it got a really good response. So I've kind of gone, well, there isn't really a downside to me for doing it. There may be a downside to other people depending on where they are in their journey, but for me, there's only an upside. So I'm quite happy to keep doing it. And if it helps one person or two people along the way, then that's a good
Well, that was
thing.
my next question, whether you've seen it pave the way for others to feel able to speak out or to confide or share. Or
I've definitely had more conversations about it in the last year since I've been open and been vulnerable. And I don't really like using the word vulnerable, but since I've been more open and more vulnerable about it, people have come to me and talked about their own challenges as well.
And you strike me as already as relatively modest in one sense. So would you stop short of sort of giving advice to others who are, struggling with situations or issues at all?
I'm never short of an opinion, it's fair to say, but I do kind of, I guess, balance that with, there needs to be a degree of why should anybody listen to me, really, right? I think I've got to where I've got to within all of this through luck, really. There's been a lot of hard work, right? But there's also a degree of luck involved. So, like I say, I can share a story, I can share what I've done, I can share my perspective, but ultimately it comes down to the individual to kind of go, well, how do I want to take this and how do I want to move forward? And that's the same with any advice that I'll give through this conversation, really. It's all done from a place of, well, it's worked for me. It may not work for anybody else. It may do, but it may not.
Yeah.